Hello and welcome to Caregiver Chronicles. I am Jeremy, one of your co-hosts. Today, this will be a solo episode. I am actually here to discuss the time that I donated bone marrow. This came up because from a Facebook post I put at the beginning of the pandemic, where I received a letter from my recipient thanking me for the donation. I just posted on Facebook. I wasn't looking for praise, but I posted on Facebook, just a happy moment. It led to a lot of likes and shares, but also a lot of questions about what led up to me donating bone marrow. So I thought I would give you a little story time here and explain what happened, especially given that just today I was reading about how to treat COVID-19 during our coronavirus during this pandemic. Hospitals are having to use a lot of blood and plasma, so they need a lot of donors, which you donate through both your bone marrow, your blood, plasma, all through all through blood centers. So it ties in nicely here that we need donors. We need it for bone marrow, we need it for blood, we need it for plasma. So the story actually begins in November of 2012. It was election day. After voting, Sarah and I went over to her parents' house, and at the fire department in the town where they live, there was a blood drive going on for a little boy who was battling leukemia. So they were, asking for blood and a bone marrow registration drive. So I went. I was willing to give both my blood and plasma and to also register for the bone marrow. I was able to register for the bone marrow. I was not able to donate blood that day because there were so many people. When people see a little kid battling leukemia, they quickly get involved with donating. But that's the thing, is you need to go to other blood drives, not just ones that focus on something like a little kid, because a lot of times those don't get filled up, and they will always need blood to help people out. So please, if you get a chance, go to a blood drive. From there, after I got on the bone marrow registry, which all that is cheek swab. You put a little Q-tip, they swab both sides of your cheek, boom, boom, you're done. It took less than 2 minutes. After that, I went to, after the drive ended, I went back to my in-laws' house and didn't think much about it, and didn't hear anything for about 6 years. The little boy got a donation from a match. I was not that match. That is perfectly fine. I'm happy he got the match. He's around today. That's great news. From there, we, it was either spring or summer of 2018 when I received a call from the Rhode Island Blood Center, which I receive calls all the time since, about blood drives. So I was just like, oh, okay, they're telling me another blood drive. So I let it go to voicemail. They actually called Sarah. She was at work. Hers went to voicemail. And then they called my dad in Missouri because he's listed as one of my emergency contacts. It went to his voicemail, but he did send me a message on Facebook saying, hey, the Rhode Island Blood Center just called me about you. So he was checking up on me at that point. By the time I noticed the Facebook message, I was awake and had actually checked my email. They had followed up through email as well, telling me that I was a potential match for a bone marrow donation and that they wanted me to come in for follow-ups. So I responded and came in. They had to draw my blood and check some more things. I don't know the technical end on what they had to do, but long story short, I was a match for this guy. So from that point on, there was the next phase is I had to go get a physical from a doctor associated with the blood center. I needed to pass both a physical and a psychological test to make sure that I was healthy enough to donate blood, and that I was mentally prepared to donate bone marrow, and that I was mentally prepared to donate bone marrow. Now, there are two types of bone marrow donations. There's one that just uses stem cells. It is a little easier. It's an advancement. It's great that they have it. And then there's one where they actually have to go into the bone and remove the marrow. That one is far more painful than the stem cell one. And let's be clear, the stem cell one is still very painful for the donor. But if it's that painful for the donor, imagine what the recipient's going through before he or she gets that. That is basically was my thought process. I passed the physical, I passed the psychological evaluation. So from that point, they set it up a time when I would donate the marrow. They chose me to do the stem cell donations mostly because I have been diagnosed with sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea does not exclude me from the more extensive bone marrow one, but they would prefer not to do it if they could. They were able to get me in get the stem cells to donate the marrow, which was a wonderful advancement. So for 5 days, I had to go in and get injected with something to help bring the stem cells up easily to draw from my blood. After on day 4 of 5, they put Sarah and me up in a hotel in Providence. The night before, they paid for dinner. We got a night of dinner. We got a nice hotel room. Then the next morning, we go in. They feed us breakfast, and then they hook me up to a machine. I've got wires coming in and out of both arms as they're drawing my blood out to get the stem cells from my blood. From there, we have. It was a very cold room. I remember that. But as we're sitting there, I'm sitting there watching TV while they do all this stuff. It's a draining experience. It was one of the most physically exhausted I ever remember being in my life, and all I was doing was sitting in a chair. But from there, what happened is they told me it would take 4 to 6 hours to do the donation. At the hour and a half mark, one of the nurses comes in. She looks at the output, and she calls in the head of the blood center. At that point, I'm thinking, is something wrong? No, they come in, they look at it, and they're shocked by the numbers because apparently I was producing the most stem cells they had ever seen in that period of time. So much so that they actually took me off the machine at the 3-hour mark because they had 4 times as many stem cells as they needed for the donation. Now, at that point, I was told that the recipient, was a man in his 60s who was battling a rare form of leukemia. And he, so simply put, I was told without the donation, he was going to die. Even with the donation, he only had a 50% chance of living, but he at least had a chance. So that was a surreal moment to hear that, but I'm very glad I did that. From there, after I was off the machine, they paid for lunch, and then I went home and slept the rest of the day, pretty much all night, and most of the next day, because that is how exhausting the experience is. Now, from there, people have asked, well, what made me donate bone marrow? I signed up, but what made me willing to sign up for bone marrow? And yeah, it's this little boy named Tyler Seddon. I mean, he's a teenager now, but this little 8-year-old boy battling leukemia, and I had Remy, who've seen her, he was not even 2 at this point in time. In 2012, when I decided to go register. But all I was thinking is, if this were him, I would be begging. If he were the one battling some rare illness and needing help, I would be begging everyone on the face of the planet to help him. If Sarah were in that position, if Joey were in that position, if my parents, my siblings, nieces, nephews, my in-laws, many of my friends were in that position, I would be out begging people to donate to help them. And my thought process was simply, if I would be willing to ask that of somebody in that position, if I'm in the position to where I can give, I better be willing to give, because that's a lot to ask of somebody. So if you're willing to ask for it, you better be willing to give it if you're in the position. And when I found out, there was no hesitation. It says the second they said I was a potential match, I called to go for the follow-up. Simply because, again, somebody needed help. And there was a good chance that I had what they needed in my body to help them. And that was all I needed to know. I know it's a scary process. I've been through it. It is very scary. And quite frankly, it is very painful. I went through the less painful version, and it was very painful. There were days when I was going through the injections where I was just constantly snapping at Sarah for no reason other than I was in so much pain. And, they don't make you tough it out. They tell you what medications you can take. It's not just, you have to deal with it because it might mess up the donation. That's not a case there. It was very, very painful. I do not wish that pain on anyone, but be willing to go through it, because think about it, how painful it is for you. It's got to be a lot worse for that recipient. And that recipient has somebody at home who loves them, that wants them around. So, that was all I needed. I hope more people will sign up for the bone marrow registry. I think it is a wonderful thing to do, and please, you can save a life. I received a letter in April of 2020 from the Blood Center received the letter, and they sent me a photocopy of it through email because they couldn't actually send it to me because of the restrictions of the pandemic at the time. But, it was a nice letter thanking me for giving him a second lease on life. I'm grateful I had the opportunity to do that. I'm grateful that he survived. I'm happy for his family. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for me, because this is a wonderful experience that I get to share. I hope more people will sign up for bone marrow registration. I hope more people will donate blood, especially in this pandemic when blood and plasma is being used to treat patients that are hospitalized. It leads to shortages. We need more of it. So if you hear your local blood center is having a blood drive, please go donate. It is a wonderful thing. It will help so many people. Go donate your blood, and your blood can be used for plasma as well. It is something that is so simple, and the blood draw, which I did in high school and I did in college, is far less painful. It's just a little prick. If you go get blood work, it's the same thing that happens there. You will be fine. But please, I beg of anyone listening to this podcast today to please look it up, find a blood drive, go donate if you can. There are some restrictions that stop certain people from donating. I completely understand that. And if you cannot donate, do not try to force your way in. But if you can, please donate. That is it for this episode. You will be able to find more of our podcasts if you like this one. We have a website now. It's With My Wife Pod at withmywifepod.com. You can reach us out at caregiverchroniclespod@gmail.com. On With My Wife Pod, you will have links to Caregiver Chronicles, to I Watched It With My Wife, our movie review podcast, and to Racing with Remy, the new podcast that Remy has actually just started, where he reviews auto racing. He's a big racing fan. Please give him a listen if you can. Also, we are, you can find us on many podcatchers. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all involving Caregiver Chronicles. Caregiver Chronicles 2 on Instagram, at CareCron1 on Twitter, Caregiver Chronicles on Facebook. We're on Caregiver Chronicles on Anchor. You can follow us in there. You can listen. You can send in questions on Anchor that we will play. And they do have a thing there. If you like our podcast and want to support us financially, you can do that as well. Do not feel obligated to by any means. But if you want to, there is an option there on Anchor. That is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.